Hey, what's going on? Welcome to this Wednesday Word, episode number 3 of the Dealer Playbook, a podcast that explores what it takes to create a thriving career right here in the retail auto industry and beyond. I'm going to be joined in a second by my pal B-RAD, who's going to reveal today's word and how you can apply it. Here we go. Oh, hi there, B-RAD.
Hi there. Hi, B-RAD.
I feel like I'm getting better at the whole disc jockey
You're slamming it, man.
VJ thing.
Slamming it.
Hey, so now, truth be told, it's not Wednesday. It's actually Tuesday. And there's a legitimate reason why we are recording the Wednesday Word on Tuesday. And it's because if we were doing this real time, I would be in shorts, a t-shirt. I'd be sitting on my back deck eating a baseball frank because it's Canada Day. So, happy Canada Day.
Yeah. Congratulations, Canada.
Thank you. Thank you.
What specific Canadian event is it? Is it your actual independence? But I mean, you're still part of
Well, we never did the whole, we basically were like, hey, basically, and man, this is awful of me. Basically, you had a French king who was like, hey, go over there and check it out. And here's loads of money and go figure it out. And so we came from right, because this is the whole French Canadian thing. Like we started out being ruled by France. King Louis, I don't know who the king was. And he said, hey, go over there. And so we came over here. All the explorers came over here and they brought, their pelts and their this and that. And then eventually there was the war and France and Britain, and then Britain took over, and then we became British, ruled by Britain. And so we haven't had like this, we need to fight for our independence. I think around somewhere in the 60s, we were like, okay, we're not going to fly the Union Jack anymore. And we're going to adopt the maple leaf instead. And then Britain was like, I do say, how passive aggressive of thee. And
pardon?
You say what, sir? And there we are, Canada. So I don't think we've had, and I could be wrong, but I don't think Canada's had such a tumultuous history as the United States.
No, not. I've done some, and we're right around the corner from the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So I got my genealogy. I got my 3 times great grandpappy Alonzo fought in the Civil War. And then if you go back even further, his great grandfather and great grandfather,
right,
both named Hope Still Senior and Junior, they fought together in the Connecticut Army.
Wow.
Yeah, in the Revolutionary War, same unit, father and son.
Wow. That's crazy.
Can you imagine?
Cool. Do you have journals and stuff?
I don't have journals, no, but I did some deep diving on the ancestry.
Right.
And I love, and we segue so.
It's like we finish each other's sandwiches.
Well, so just like it's just amazing that we're even talking about this, and with me knowing what this week's word is, and the fact that we just organically, synergistically are having this conversation, and how well it's going to bleed into the word, like it's amazing. But so like I've been able to look at like muster rolls and stuff like that. And I have a better handle on Alonzo's history from the Civil War than I do on the 2 Hope Stills. Because back then you didn't have a lot outside of family Bibles and muster rolls. And that's all, we're talking 300 years ago now.
Now, before we dig into this Wednesday word, we should probably preface, the people watching us on the lives who maybe haven't caught the Wednesday word on the podcast. We were doing it on the podcast for a while. the Wednesday word, the whole premise of this is that you found all of these words and you were looking at the etymology and the meaning and the origin and more importantly, what attracted me to this whole concept was looking at how you can take just a single word and apply it to your life so that you can see the impact, you can see results, you can see improvement, or like we talked about on last week's Wednesday word, you can get to this advanced state in your life. And so that's what we're doing here. So we've stopped publishing them on the audio only podcast because B-RAD and I, David Bradley, love exploring new ways of getting the word out and sharing a message. And one thing that I've never really particularly been good at is the whole live thing. And so I thought, hey, why don't we stop doing it there and we'll take that bandwidth and we'll move it here. So this is the whole premise. B-RAD's got a word. By the way, if you're just tuning in, David Bradley, but I call him B-RAD because I hope it sticks. He picks a word. We are going to follow a wormhole. You're going to see how quickly we just start following a wormhole here. And the whole point of the conversation is how you can take just one word. And when you learn a little bit about it, you start to see all of the different applications in your life. You maybe see how you're falling short, or maybe how you're doing okay. Like it's weird how just a single word can become a gauge for success, but that's the whole purpose here. That's what we're doing today. So B-RAD, we were talking about the Civil War, the history of Canada. You say it's funny how this always happens. It's a perfect segue. You are the master of segues, by the way.
Yeah.
So tell me, I pray thee, how does the Civil War and the origins of Canada segue into today's Wednesday word?
So this week's word is, well, let me also segue into this, is that the origin of this Wednesday word, and, it comes from a very early quote, one of the first lessons I learned when I started following Grant Cardone, not just working for him, but like following his content.
Right.
Selling is a conversation. Power comes from the words that you use. So it's so important to me to like really look at, how are we using these words, right? And we say things all the time, we take them for granted, and we don't, there is power in words. I know words can never hurt you, sticks and stones and that sort of thing, but it's like, no, they can, and they do, and they're very, very powerful, and they could be empowering, right? Or they could be suppressive, depending on how you use them and what they mean to you, and the decision you make about it and what you do with it. So that brings me into today's word, which is, do we have a drum roll on that sound bar?
No, but I'll just push a button at random. Let's see what we got.
Okay. Today's word is,
oh,
no, that worked. Adversity.
Adversity. Wait.
Yeah.
No, crap. I don't have a adversity. Okay.
Adversity. Yeah.
Not typically a word that you would consider. Like we've typically had words that I think en masse have a positivity bias.
Yeah. Well, we've had like discipline, mindset, skill, vision, energy, attraction.
Yeah.
Persistence. Last week was progression, but this week's adversity. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a noun. And the definition, everybody knows what it means, really. I mean, it's difficulties, it's misfortune. But the quote, like when you're looking in the dictionary and then they give you they use the word in a sentence, right? So it's resilience in the face of adversity.
Right.
So as I started looking at the etymology, it started getting interesting. And I found this really cool section out of Vocabularycom. But if you just go to the etymology dictionary, it says that it's a Middle English word, comes from Old French, adversite or advertus or adversitus, situs. That's the last deal, right? But it means turn towards.
Interesting.
Advertari, turn towards. And so look at that. You got words down there now.
Yeah. I just did that on the fly.
Boom. So then you get into this is where this is why I selected it and why it made sense, is that when you look at vocabulary.com, it says this quote, when circumstances or situations work against you, you face adversity. Refugees from war-torn countries encounter terrible adversity. And that's the example. And then it's adversity is a noun, which has been part of the English language for over 800 years, comes from Latin adversus, literally means turned against, and figuratively hostile or unfavorable. So when things seem against you, I mean, we're all facing a lot of adversity right now. So when things seem against you, circumstances or a stroke of bad luck, you're facing adversity. Sometimes people use the form of the phrase turning adversity into opportunity. And that's really what we should be talking about today. So, and that refers to somebody's ability or a company for that matter, their skill set or their ability to take a bad situation and make it into something good.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about this too? The thing that's coming to my mind is without adversity, we would have no gauge of anything. Like, there needs to be an opposing force. There needs to be an opposite. If there was no opposite, we wouldn't know good from bad or what we like versus what we dislike.
You would never appreciate the light without the dark.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, is that a Batman quote? No.
It could be.
I think I'm mixing that up with the dawn is always, or what is it? The night is always darkest before the dawn or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That's really interesting. I think of my experience. Here I am, a 23, 24, 25, 26, 27-year-old depressed, severely depressed, faced with adversity that I, for years, had no idea what was going on. I just knew that I was in this dark place that I didn't really understand. Fast forward 10 years or 20 years even, really, which is still a short period of time in the grand scheme of things, to achieve what I'm achieving. But it took that adversity for me to really understand what I didn't like and what I didn't want to be, or what I didn't, the state in which I did not want to remain.
I heard this great statement from, Grant talks about in Sell or Be Sold about how problems are opportunities. And it takes a shift in how you think in order to get that habit, to be able to immediately find yourself in a place of adversity and go, this is an opportunity. Right. So right. I got a few guys that I really, really look up to and admire and would consider mentors. Grant being one of them, obviously, but another one, Grant and this other guy named Wayne Dyer. I credit both of these guys for literally helping save my life at a time when I was in a very dark place, working through all sorts of adversity. And one of my favorite Wayne Dyer quotes is, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change.
Yeah.
So how do I stack those two in the face of adversity, to recognize that the adversity I'm in is actually an opportunity? And it's an opportunity on multiple levels for me to grow personally, right? And then also for me to potentially grow financially.
Right. So, well, that is the question. I think that's the question that a lot of people are trying to understand. Maybe they're trying to reconcile, well, how do I go from this state of adversity or feeling like I am constantly being acted upon versus being the actor, to a state where I am in control. I'm the actor, not the acted upon. Right.
Well, another guru, Tony Robbins, talks about how it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And I don't know if that's his or not, but that's where I first heard it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And and Grant talks about it's not happening to you, it's happening because of you. And I love that, because that puts you at cause for what's happening. So if you find yourself in some adversity, then it's usually a consequence of something that you did previously, right? And then the fact that this may be for you means I got this amazing opportunity to grow right now.
Yeah.
And I heard like the first, this was years ago. So we were in the Beverly Hills office. This is before Grant moved to Miami, and he's on his phone, on his cell phone, and he's having a conversation with a guy. And I don't know who he's talking to. I still don't know who it was, but the guy was telling him that he had been diagnosed with cancer, and not an easily treatable cancer. Like he's going to go through some real adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing Grant says to him is, I want you to know that if you weren't up for this, it wouldn't be happening.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then
one of the most metaphysical comments out of his mouth.
Right. Well, yeah, but like my grandmother, and it was on her funeral card when she passed away, was the prayer of St. Francis DeSales, which talks about God will either shield you from suffering or give you unfailing strength to bear it.
Right.
And so like all of those things, like, so, and these are the things that like when you're in adversity, and there's a lot of people that are right now. So whether it's you're going through an actual COVID experience, whether you're physically experiencing that or financially experiencing the fallout from that, you know, I mean, how many people have lost jobs or are forced to take a pay cut or in this massive transition right now? There's a lot of adversity out there. So it's, what are you doing with it?
Right. Well, and that requires, at a basis, it requires a fundamental shift in mindset, because unless you're willing to understand that it's not happening to you, and that you see, like without problems, there would be no acceleration.
Right.
That there just wouldn't be. There would be nothing to push against. A rocket needs air. It needs matter in order for there to be the thrust needed to launch out of the planet.
And it needs gravity.
A barrier. I mean, a lot of people like, why does the when we had shuttles, why did they flip on their back? It's because the gravitational force was so great that if it remained right side up, it could rip the wings and the tail off. There was a massive obstacle to push against. And you know, I actually love the analogy of the shuttle, because that demonstrates that you and your inner force and the thrust that you create from your mindset and your actions must be greater than the adversity pushing against you, trying to hold you back.
Preach.
Oh, wait, wrong one. Ah, crap.
You got to hit here. Were you going for
I need to memorize these. You know, but that's a really interesting thing. I often think about people that are like, you know, we've recently had some experiences in our family, and I mean, everybody's got things going on in their family, whether it's health issues, or some people are having marriage issues, or some people are having career issues. Man, can we ever get a break? That's I think the common sentiment amongst people. Can we ever get a break? Geez, why is all the man, we can never get a break. What are you talking about? If there were no problems, what would we do with our lives? The only reason that anybody's in business is because there was a problem to solve.
Yeah.
You should be excited about the problem. You know, and so it's about, you know, it comes back to just, you got to get your mindset right and understand that adversity is not happening to you. The universe is not working in spite or against you. The universe and you as a part of this universe is actually trying to propel you forward.
Yeah. And there's a really good chance that if you are experiencing some adversity, that it's probably something that you put out there anyway.
Oh yeah. Like think about, you know, when I do keynotes often, and this is actually kind of funny. It's an experiment in and of itself. When I do a keynote presentation, they all often come back to the concept of choose your own adventure. You remember those novels back in elementary school, the choose your adventure books?
Loved them.
For those that aren't familiar with Choose Your Adventure, it's basically these sci-fi novels that you could pick up, and you would be reading through the first person as one of the main characters, the hero, the heroine, whatever. And periodically throughout the book in the storyline, it would give you a choice to make, like a B type choice. And it would say, if you want to follow the monster into the dark cave, turn to page 30. If you want to take the safe way around and, whatever, increase your chances of getting to the end of the mission, turn to page 40. Well, life is a big choose your own adventure book. By the time you get eaten by the monster on page 63, and before you start thinking, oh man, and getting skeptical that maybe all decisions in the book lead to page 63 where you're eaten by the monster, you got to understand that if you're not paying attention to the decisions you make, it becomes really hard for you to trace how you arrived where you arrived. And this is the case in life. Like, I am fascinated. I don't know about you, but this is the kind of stuff that I love following the wormhole on. The life that I'm living today, in all of the things that I have accomplished or have not accomplished, is a result of the compounding ripple effect of choices that I'm probably made when I was like 7.
Oh yeah. Oh, totally.
Or earlier. And we don't realize that because we're like, no, how can that be? A 7-year-old isn't, their frontal lobe hasn't developed yet. How are they making choices? Well, you got to understand. Yeah. Like think of anybody, that's a skeptic about anything, like they are just a natural born skeptic. If they sat down with a timeline therapist or a psychologist or anybody that focuses on the brain, they would be able to pinpoint where that skepticism came from, and then look at the impact that skepticism has had on their life and how closed-minded they are, or maybe how egotistical they are, or how full of pride they are, like whatever their mechanism is for, sheltering their skepticism. And it's usually when they're a kid. Like we talked about how I was afraid of water till I was like 17, couldn't swim. And it's because of a bad experience I had when I was like 4.
But it's not so much the experience, it's the decision of the experience that you made.
That's right. Yeah.
So like, you were earlier talking about like, why is everything happening to me if you're stuck in that place? One of the lessons that I've learned from Grant and I'm still working on, it's a challenge, is to have goals so big that your problems pale in comparison. Like if you're thinking at this high level, then when the proverbial fit hits the shan, it minimizes the problem. It's more of an opportunity than it is an actual problem per se. And why is it always happening to me? Then if you're just going to take full responsibility for it, then the first thing is you're probably not thinking big enough and your goals aren't big enough. And the second thing is that, I've been talking about like everything that is happening in my life right now, where I'm at, where you're at, where the people watching at home, where you're at, the moment you're in right now is a direct result of previous thoughts, decisions, and actions. And you can stretch that out a little bit more, right? But since we're talking about adversity, if you're experiencing adversity right now, then it's a direct result of your previous thoughts, decisions, and actions. So you have a thought, then you make a decision about the thought. You make a decision about what that thought means. And then you make a decision as to whether or not you are going to believe it.
Yeah.
Right? And then you do something about it. You take action, or you don't do, and not doing is also an action.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Not doing is as much an action as doing. I'm also, I'm concerned about, okay, well, what action would I take? If I think back to overcoming depression, or if I think back to any obstacle that I've overcome, or any task that seemed impossible in the moment, because I think a lot of people get stuck on this. I mean, at least in my observation, a lot of the people that I work with or that come to me for advice or want to chat, it's often that they get hung up on the seeming impossibility of overcoming adversity. And to your point, and to the point of action, I think what's important here is that you have some tools in your toolbox that you can start to deploy to help you get to that next step. One of them being, identifying why this adversity is even an issue, right?
Yeah. Well, you got to take full responsibility for being there.
Yeah. Once you identify why, then you have to accept that reason. Like, oh crap, it's me.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, I got to accept that. As soon as I can accept that, then I can actually take steps. If you're not willing to accept that maybe you're the issue, or maybe you're not willing to accept that your circle of friends is toxic and they're holding you back, or like whatever it is, until you accept it, you can't move past it. And then the other thing I would say is, after you've accepted, after you've identified and you've accepted, the willingness required to do whatever it takes to move past it and to actually do it. You might be you got to get to a point. This is my belief, and you tell me if I'm missing something here. I had to get to a point mentally and in my heart, in my gut, where if somebody said the only way to move past this is to run down the street wearing nothing but tube socks, I would have done it. I would have been like, I'm already halfway down the street, buck naked, wearing tube socks. Do you know what I mean? Like I had to get, and I'm not, obviously you're not going to have to do that, but I had to get to a place.
Well, there was that one time in college.
Well, now what are we going to
do? But I needed the money.
But it was that or donate plasma. I didn't have any more plasma to give. Do you know what I mean? But like, I think a lot of people are like, oh no, I wouldn't be willing to do that.
Yeah.
No, you have to get to a point where you're so, and this is the power, I think, of adversity. You get so sick of where you're at and what you're experiencing that you are willing to do whatever you got to do to get past it.
You got to become sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Sick and tired of sick and tired. Totally.
Right. Where the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change.
Mm.
That's where you see people have these like shifts, right? You look in the mirror, like, okay, that's it, we're done. And then, no more Twinkies or whatever it is that you're doing, right? You look in the mirror and you're like, I'm done. There's this moment where you're just like, that's it. You draw a line, and I think, and that's where those thoughts and the decisions about what the thought means and about whether or not you believe it or not, because if we just use that as an example, or if you, and we've all struggled with some form of depression at some point. We all have, I don't know who it is. I mean, it's not you, it's not your higher self, but there's that voice that likes working on you. Right.
Yep.
And, I don't
devil's advocate.
Yeah. Or you're straight up devil, because more often than not, he's trying to sabotage you. Right. And most likely. Yeah. And these are things that you've learned and heard and were programmed to some degree. You think about, you're never going to be anything, or you're never going to make it, or you're not good enough for that, or you can't, you just, whatever it is that just likes to fire off and work on you. If you've got to decide what it means, and then you have to decide if you're going to believe it or not.
I think exposure is something too, right? Like with the whole sick and tired of being sick and tired thing, like I think of exposure. The more I'm exposed to something, the less frightening it feels. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're afraid of zombies right now until zombies are standing out your door every waking minute and you're looking out the window seeing that, you would get to a point where you're so sick of seeing zombies that you would just you wouldn't be afraid of them. You'd be like, oh, I'm comfortable now around these things because I know how they behave.
Yeah.
And I think too, that's the weird thing from my vantage point, is that some people get comfortable with their adversity because they've been exposed to it for so long.
Right. And we were talking about that, I think, a couple of weeks ago with Jordan drilling and practicing on the court, with 6 seconds on the clock and just getting so familiar with being 6 seconds left to go, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. I think the more you should welcome that kind of adversity and practice that kind of adversity. You know, I mean, that's the whole purpose of buds in the Navy SEALs.
Right.
It's to weed out the people that can't really tolerate extreme levels of adversity.
Yeah. So if we had to wind this down and we had to say, okay, we're looking at adversity and we're looking at progressing beyond it. We're looking at moving past it so that it is never an issue for us. What are the top 3 things you would recommend those watching or listening do?
Well, I think so. We all have a history, and we've all experienced adversity before. And I think you want to, number one, you want to get to a place to where you can use your history and not be used by it. So there's work involved in that, in terms of you being able to take a historical moment in your life that may have some emotional charge on it and refile it in a place to where you can look at it objectively. But if you take a real assessment and debrief the adverse situation the same way a fighter would look at the film after a fight, or a team would review the gameplay in terms of, hey, what happened, what worked, what didn't work. Be very analytical of the moment so you can really understand what you did and what happened. And I think if you could get a handle on history that way, your history, it gives you this opportunity to start finding the opportunity. What was and what is the opportunity in this moment, where you can really start looking at, hey, how am I going to make some lemonade out of this? Even still, because if you're carrying the memory, it may be influencing your current decisions. Right? So what opportunities can you create from adversity you've experienced in the past? And then as I was researching the word, I found this really cool meme, I guess.
Yeah.
And and it's Control Alt Delete.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you experiencing a personal blue screen of death?
Right. So
Control Alt Delete.
Right. But what do those words stand for? Which I thought was really, really cool. Control yourself, alter your thinking, delete negativity.
That's what that gets right there. We need a bomb, like a power.
What about a
power bomb noise?
Sound effect?
That's huge. And I love the opportunity side of it. You know, if you don't yet see this in yourself, I hope what you're picking up here, I hope the vibe you're picking up as you listen to B-RAD and myself talk about the Wednesday word adversity, it's that you're more powerful than you're giving yourself credit for. You were born great. Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, every obstacle is an opportunity. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep going decade after decade, looking back, being like, crap? Or are you going to make the choice today to do something with it? What is the obstacle that's keeping you, or that you're using as an excuse to keep you from achieving that? You know, we had people on last week that were like, that's my frustration, is I know there's something greater in me that I'm not yet experiencing. Man, life takes a whole different look when you make the decision that I'm going to start taking steps towards overcoming, towards acknowledging, towards moving past, towards rising up. And the interesting thing about adversity and opportunity is that I know from my experience, David knows from his, B-RAD knows from his, adversity, weakness, perceived weakness can become strengths. I am so grateful for the experiences, the adversity that I've faced in my life, because it allows me to more empathically, what's the right way? What's the right word? Do we need to make it a Wednesday word?
No, you're on it. They all worked.
Lift others. And that is the whole key to this. If you're thinking about making more money and only making more money, you got to understand the way to make more money is to solve other people's problems or help them solve their problems. It's about helping them overcome adversity. And so if you're afraid of adversity yourself, how are you going to be able to help somebody else do it? Service is senior to selling. How are you going to be able to serve somebody overcome their adversity if you're afraid of adversity yourself? B-RAD, thanks so much for joining me again on episode number 3 of the Wednesday Word. Can you believe 35 minutes has already come and gone?
That was fast.
That was fast. And that's the fun. That's why I love about the Wednesday Words is, like, I mean, we could talk about just one. You probably didn't even notice it. Those of you that are watching, you probably didn't even notice, whoa, I didn't think I could get this much out of a single word. But this is exactly the power of exploring a word, and more importantly, how you can apply it to your life. That's what we're doing every week on Wednesday, right here on Facebook, Twitch, where else are we? YouTube. We're going live, and we are so glad that you are here checking out the show. Hey, if you have questions or comments, we would love to hear them. We're going to be responding to all of them. You can even leave us a voicemail. Did you know that? You got a question or you got a word that you think we should be talking about here on the Wednesday Word, you can leave a voicemail, 780-306-2021. And while you're at it, why don't you go and subscribe to the Cardone Solutions podcast, where you're going to hear B-RAD. And if you haven't done it yet, man, click the subscribe on the DPB, the Dealer Playbook. It is available on your favorite podcast app, featuring weekly interviews with subject matter leaders from both in and out of the car industry. B-RAD, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you so much for having me. I love doing this.
It's a blast. All right, gang, we'll catch you next week right here on the Wednesday Word, episode number 4.